Alright, so we're working our way on our 1918 Colt parts, all these small parts, and they're all pitted. Everything on that gun was pitted. I'll just see if I can get up a little bit up close and see if you can see some of the details of some of this pitting, how fine it is. Maybe I'll move this camera over here. Let's see if we can zero in on some of that pitting. Got the there we go. Move in a little bit. We've got the trigger done, but as you can see here, and as I rotate this, you can see quite plainly all the pitting. It's fine, but you couldn't blue over that. It'd be a waste of money. So everything's got to be. If I'm that really slow, you can see all that fine pitting. So, like I say, I'm going to make it look good. I'm not going to waste our time. So I've got the trigger done. The trigger I'd polished out all that. It had some fine pitting on it too. So it's all done. It's ready to be re-blued. So that's looking good. So, but everything, and I've started on the mainspring housing, but you can see it's still got some. I just started, so I just wanted you to see. It kind of highlights some of the pits when you hit it with a piece of sandpaper. So you can see just how much got to be cleaned up on that thing. Not horrible, but got to be cleaned up a bit. And we got our slide lock. You can see there. You can see all the pitting on that. If I move it real slow, you can see that. So once again, you know, you couldn't. There you can see that real plain. You can't just blue that. So the whole restoration would be a waste of time. You see, even underneath it needs help. So we're going to go ahead and get all these pieces done, small pieces done, and the frame and the slide are they've been rehardened, and just got to put the graining back in there, and we're going to get them done. So this thing's going to be wrapped up pretty soon. Alright, so I've got all the small parts done now for that 1918, and let's have a quick look at them. They pretty much all get graining, but some of them have a little different graining pattern or a different grit size. I'm just going to move the camera over here so it doesn't get confused. It only likes to look at one thing at a time. That's what I finally figured out about this thing. So let's just look at the slide stop. You remember the slide stop was pitted, so I worked on that for a bit, and I was able to see if we can get everybody to cooperate here. And I was able to put some graining. You can see the graining in there. So that's a nice heavy grain which duplicates the original. I cleaned it all up around the top and around the bottom. It was pitted everywhere, if you remember the pictures. So now it's nice. It's got good graining everywhere that it needs it. Duplicates the original really good. I've got excellent pictures to go by. And I actually had an original 1918 came in yesterday just for a guy wanted me to just have a look at it. But his had exactly the graining I was looking for, and so I was able to compare what he had an original to what I'm trying to duplicate. So I'm real confident now that I've got everything going the way it should go. So that's the slide stop, and then here's the safety, which once again has some really interesting and different graining. You can see how it goes in different directions. You can see how underneath here, from the bottom of this down, the graining goes horizontally. You should be able to see that. You can see that okay. But then it goes horizontally up on top here too. But then on the side here, where they came in to machine the side of the the thumb piece, it left cutting marks, graining in that direction. So it's really quite interesting how they did it, and I've duplicated it the best I can. So I've gone all the way around and cleaned it up. So that's going to be a really good looking piece, and that stays shiny. I don't bead blast any of this, so it's going to be nice shiny blued finish, but it's going to have that nice unique graining in it. So here's our barrel bush. You can see once again I put a nice heavy graining kind of running at a bit of an angle. So that's going to be a nice contrast against the heavy graining that's on the very front of the slide, which is going to run in a slightly different direction. So you can see that. So that's going to look really good in blue. I'm eager to see this one done. And we got our rear sight. Once again, that got graining. Everything on these pistols seems to be grained. Anything that's going to be below the frame or below the slide, that little gouge right there, I'm not worried about. It'll be hidden by the by the cut in the slide, the dovetail. Sorry, having a brain fart for a minute. So even that's grained, even the side of it, and I duplicated, from this original example and great pictures that I've got. So it's got exactly the right graining in the right direction. So it's pretty important to maintain, if you're going to do it, let's maintain the right look. So once again, the hammer got a nice graining on the sides. You remember this was pitted, so that's all taken care of now, and it's going to look good blued and all that. A little bit of dust here and there, but we'll clean that up. I did the top, so I got rid of all the pitting. I'm not worried about down in here on the bottom part. None of that shows, so I'm not going to waste labor on that. But everything else looks good. I'm real happy with how that's going to be. So that's that. Here's our grip safety. Remember I showed you quite a bit of detail on that one. So now let's look at it after. Remember how pitted that was before. So now it's got a nice. Now that's a lighter graining grit than the frame has, and that's from what I've been able to determine, that's exactly the way it should be. So that's going to look really good. That grit is going to show up in the bluing, but it's not going to be really profound. But that's exactly how it should be. So no more pitting in that piece either. The face of the magazine catch was pitted, so that's been cleaned up. Got no issues there at all. Left a little bit of a grain pattern on that too. So that should look really nice. Can't wait to see this all assembled. This mainspring housing, if you remember, that was all pitted. So now that's got a nice finish on it. Fairly fine. I duplicated what I saw, which was a finer finish on the back of it than the frame, for example, and finer than on the bottom of it. The bottom of it's coarser. I recut that little half circle or whatever for clearance for the lanyard to pass through when you got a lanyard loop on there. So I recut that, put some graining and everything. So that'll look good once that's in that pistol. That graining will look really nice. So a little bit of dust there. So that's going to look great. What else we got? We got our, I guess this is about the last piece. The end of the extractor, it was pitted, so couldn't put that back in. So I cleaned that up too. So that's good to go, and I already showed you the trigger. That's ready to go. So all the small parts are done now. I just got to regrain the frame and the slide now that they're back from the heat treaters, and send everything in and get it blued. So we're really getting close now. I'm getting excited. So stay tuned. Alright, so we got our 1918 back from the heat treaters, and I went ahead and it's been rehardened, so I went ahead and put the grain back in everything, because when you get back from the heat treaters you've got to bead blast it and clean it up, so that kind of diminishes the graining look a bit. So I went ahead and talked to this piece, so let me get over here. Our camera won't get so quite so confused. Alright. See if that makes it a little bit better. Get a little bit of cooperation here, if we don't mind. Just a little bit. There we go. Alright. So now, like I said, we went ahead and we regrained everything. So it's got that really nice heavy grain in it now, like it did. And cleaned up all the serrations. So top has got the graining run the other way, just like it should. Front sight, I had to make that front sight. I threw that in. And there we go. Graining again. So it's really looking good now. There's those serrations. So if you get the serrations out too much, they show like crazy. So you got to try and get them all pretty even so they look uniform. It's tough to make them look like a machine did them. But if you just take your time, you can make them look pretty good. So anyway, so that's the slide. That's looking good. We've got our frame. Once again, the frame. Went ahead and regrained it again after it got back from the heat treater. So it's got all the nice heavy. Like I say, I used a 40 grit That seems extreme, but that was the only way I could get it to have the look that I was looking for. I even compared it to an original 1918 that came in the other day for a quote, and it was exactly the same finish. So I was able to see an original one that had never been done before. So it's good, and it's graining like we've talked about before. Its graining runs the same way. It's vertical until it reaches, about here, and then it becomes horizontal. Just below the mag catch, it switches from being horizontal. You see those horizontal scratches, and then they diminish right in here, and then they become horizontal. So I've kept, I've been true to the original as I can be. I've got lots of pictures and everything to go by, so I'm real confident that that's how that should be. So that's the frame, and we've got all the parts done. Everything is done now. So just going to go ahead and get it all assembled. The only thing I've got left to do now is I got to put the plunger tube. I had to shear the plunger tube off the frame, so I got to put a plunger tube on, and I got all new grip screw bushings because they were I couldn't reuse the staked ones. The military stakes them in there, and they're just too hard to reuse. So I just got some new ones, and that'll take care of that. So we're coming right along. I'm going to get this all assembled. We'll have one last look at it all done. I like to see it when it's all in that bare metal. It just looks so tough looking and so machine-like. So anyway, we'll get that done, and we'll see what she looks like in a little bit. All right, so I threw it back together, and I just want to have one last look at it when it's got all this heavy graining in it. A lot of effort and time, labor goes into refinishing all of these jobs, but this one especially was pretty interesting because of that graining. I'd just never done one before, so I researched it a lot. I looked at lots of pictures. I looked at actual examples, so I'm real confident now. But once this gets blued, it's going to go into Morrow and get blued, so we're not going to be able to enjoy it in this state. So I just wanted to kind of give a quick shot of it in this kind of machined looking state, because even when you see them chrome plated or stainless, they don't have that texture. They don't have that graining in the metal. So that's it's kind of a nice thing to see. It just gives it such a I don't know, I hate to use the word utilitarian all the time, but that's what it is. It just gives it a nice, clean, industrial kind of look. So I was able to save the slide markings. They all came out quite nice. The frame markings are duplicated. It's that nice graining on the slide stop. That's the same slide stop. It was all pitted, but I repaired it. Now, the safety is a replacement. Once I got researching a little more, I realized that the safety that was on it when it came in was not the correct safety. So I was able to round up the exact right safety, and I grained it. So that's proper. I changed the plunger tube. That's new. I changed the barrel, or the grip screw bushings, the same grip screws. All these parts, the housing, mainspring housing, and the grip safety, they're all original. So you can see, all the different directions that all goes in. Underneath there is kind of the most interesting, the way it goes around the trigger guard, and even inside the trigger guard, it's got that same texture. So it's really unique. I'm quite taken by these. First 1918 I've done, and it was really an interesting project. Let's see if we can get our camera to there we go. So that gives you that nice look. And once again, all the lines are nice and sharp. Make sure they keep all the lines razor sharp. And of course, all the pitting's gone. Front sight, I had to make that. Nobody seems to supply 1911 sights. So last few I've done. Well, I haven't really done any 1918s, but I did a couple of 27 Argentines, and they used a round sight like a World War I sight. And I also did a Singer clone, and I had to make another one of those sights. So anyway, but that's I just like that that look. Even the rear sight was grained like original. So this is that's about as close to the way it was that we can get it. It's a heavier grain on the frame horns than it is on the grip safety, which is completely correct. So there we go. That's one last look at it before it goes back in. So like I say, all the pitting's gone, all the issues are gone. One thing I see a little bit, there's still a tiny little bit of evidence just in front of the slide stop there of the welding that was done. So it's not really noticeable badly, but you can see a little bit. Even though I metal finished that, it's just fighting me a little tiny bit. So we'll see what that looks like after it's blued. But everything else is good. I'm real happy. Front came out nice. I put a graining on the bushing, and it runs a different direction than the graining I put on the frame, just so they would kind of contrast each other. Quite a few of the pictures that I saw, that's the way they were. So I know I'm in the right, I'm in the right ballpark, so to speak. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this up and get this thing disassembled. We're going to take it in tomorrow and have it black oxided, and I can't wait to see what it's going to look like. So stay tuned. Alright, so we got our 1918 Colt all completed. I sent all the parts out to the black oxide shop, and they ran it through their system, and I got everything back and assembled it. Let's just have a quick look at it and see what all my efforts produced. The unique feature about this one that I found so interesting, and it gave me, the most challenge, was the finish of the metal. See if I can get a fairly good up close shot here. There we go. Just move along nice and slow. You can see the beautiful graining of that metal, which I found so interesting. I work on so many 1911 A1s, and they're more or less just sandblast and repart. So one like this was really interesting. I had fun with the whole job. I can see that nice graining. Here's that serial number that we re-lasered. That come out really nice. You notice it's even a slight bit crooked, like it was, just to duplicate a hand stamp. There's those serrations that I worked on. One of them or two of them had a little bit of weld added to them. I don't quite remember which ones now, but they look pretty good. There's that nice graining on everything. The grips are the original grips, and I just boil them and put them through the process. I stain them and tongue oil them. So you can't really see the on the lower part of the frame. Well, you can see a little bit right there. Right there, you can see where the scratches here are running up and down. So this whole area under the grip, more or less, the scratches run up and down until about in this area here, just below the mag catch, and then everything became horizontal. All the scratches run this way. So I was real careful in duplicating everything that they'd done. Thing's a bit of a pain in the butt. Every time you touch it, you got fingerprints on it. But anyway, and underneath on the dust cover, let me get a good shot of that. You can see the graining runs the other way. So it runs. There's a good contrast right there. It runs, left to right on the front there, under the slide, on the bottom of the slide, and then it runs the other way on the frame. So it gives it a nice kind of a contrast. You can see that. So I'm glad all those the graining showing up so well in the bluing. I spent a lot of time duplicating it, so I just wanted to make sure that it was going to look good and do all my work justice, do it proud. So once again, in an area like here, I maintain the right direction. Let's wipe that a little bit. I maintained the right direction as far as You know, in here this had to go this way for that little bit, which it does, and then it goes this way all the way around that trigger housing. Once again, though, until it gets to that little point there, and then it becomes, you know, it runs that way again. So it's interesting, a little bit tricky, but once I figured out how they did it, then it wasn't too bad. So that graining runs all the way around the bottom of the pistol, and that's completely the way it should be, and even on inside that trigger guard, the trigger opening. So, and I gave the trigger a little, some dust on there, gave the trigger a little graining side of it. That was pitted, if you remember. Everything on this gun was pitted. Every inch of the gun was pitted. There's a mag release that I took the pits out and even gave that a bit of a graining. I tried to run the graining kind of the other way so it would stand out. It would contrast nicely against that frame. And from all the pictures I've seen, that's the way they did it. Now on the back of the frame, let's move this camera up a little bit higher. So on the back of the frame, I've got the scratches running left to right, as they should be. So that all looks good. You can see the heavy graining on the back of the slide, and then it continues down into the onto the frame horns. It's that same horizontal heavy graining. Now the hammer itself, and that was pitted too, that got a different texture. All the small pieces were textured slightly different than the main frame and the slide, and so I really studied some photographs carefully to try and get that proper look. So you can see that mainspring housing has got a much tighter grain in that metal than the frame does. And then the grip safety, if you remember correctly, that grip safety was badly pitted. So now we've got ourselves a nice pit-free finish. So, and all the lines are sharp. It's able to save everything, keep everything nice and crisp and sharp looking. The inspector's mark was re-engraved in there, and that came out really nice. So there it is right there. That's that slide stop that we worked on. If you remember correctly, that had pits and everything in it, so I put the graining in there, prepared that. The safety was, it originally had the wrong safety. A little more off. Had the wrong safety, so I was able to find a correct safety, and I installed it, and I gave it the graining that it should have. So that looks really good. That came out really good. So, and there's all the markings on that side of the frame, which are side of the slide, which are original. There's those serrations again. So that's all original markings on the slide right there. I was able to duplicate all those, so that came out really nice. And the frame, I had the United States property re-engraved. I had the alignment mark on the top of the slide re-engraved as well. There you can see the graining on the top of the slide runs back and forth from left to right. That rear sight, I put some graining in that too. The barrel. Now the barrel is it's not quite the correct barrel. I researched that a little bit, and it appears that this barrel would be closer to what a 1919 would probably have. So if I get a little closer, we can see the grain on that. I grained the barrel as well, just to try and duplicate what the original barrel would have looked like. Even though this is the wrong barrel, at least I'm trying to make it kind of look like the original would have, with the graining running left to right, matching the graining in the slide. So that's about it for this. Got the model 1911 U.S. Army, and so like I say, all our lines are really preserved nice, and that's about it. Everything turned out just great. It's a good looking pistol. I had a lot of fun doing this one, and hopefully I'll get to do a few more 1918s. I know there's another Another one, the Black Colt they call it, which I might have mistakenly called this one at first. I assumed that all 1918 Colts were Black Colts. It shows you how limited knowledge I have on these 1911s, but I'm learning. Each one I'm doing, I'm getting a little bit more knowledge now, so it's really been interesting to get into this field of the 1911s. So, but there's a lot of differences. There's a lot of things you have to learn about them. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this one up. It's ready to be shipped back to Alberta. It came all the way from Alberta for me to work on it, so I appreciate the effort and the time that everybody goes through to ship their guns to me. I try my best, as you can tell, to give you what you paid for and give you something you can be proud of. So anyway, I'm going to wrap that up for now, but I hope you enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun doing, and you'll have to catch me on the next one.